So, the first major teaser for the second Five Nights at Freddy's movie was dropped, and today we're going to go over what was in it and what might be the plot of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, because despite it being called a teaser, it's very much a short trailer. Now keep in mind that this is very, very early, and a lot of this is speculation that probably won't come to fruition. My guesses tend to be all over the map. Like, with the first Fnaf movie, I actually did eventually guess before the movie came out that Vanessa was going to be Will or Steve's daughter, but I was wrong in thinking that she was going to be actively working with him, and my assumption that Vanny would show up has still not happened yet. Point is, listen with a grain of salt. Let's start by covering the teaser and what we see in it, then we can get to the speculation. We start with a broken poster, an endo lighting up, and a voice saying, "Welcome back! Are you ready to start the show?" It doesn't sound like that though. And shortly after starts counting down through the next few scenes. Throughout the trailer as well, My Grandfather Clock, the music box track, plays in the background. We see a clip of a Freddy-themed festival. There is a blonde girl here who looks a lot like young Vanessa, but that might just be a coincidence. Love her friend's Bonnie-inspired Coraline hair, though. We then cut to Abby riding up on her bike to a new Freddy's. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the one with the toys. The place looks dilapidated, like it's been abandoned for many years. We cut to a note that Mike pulls off of a door. It says, "Gone to fix my friends," and is very likely, almost certainly written by Abby. There's then a shot of Vanessa standing outside. Hey, looks like she's out of the hospital. And she says, "They're out there, Mike." We then see a quick glimpse of Toy Bonnie looking through a curtain. Back to Mike. He asks, "Where?" Someone, a man, is pressing a button that says Showtime. Back to Vanessa, and she says, "Everywhere." And then Wayne Knight shows up. Newman. Anywho, he's in a school peeking in a window when some very jaundiced-looking eyes appear. He screams, and then a yellow arm reaches through and snatches him. It's Toy Chica. We then see Toy Chica's feet, and then Mangle smashing in a window. Mike, Abby, and Vanessa are backing away, with Mike and Abby doing that hug thing that they did in the first movie, the one that I have a picture of and bring up occasionally. But they are not backing away from Mangle because the lighting is different. We then see Toy Freddy lifting a garage door. Now the lighting color is the same as in the other room, but the angle's not quite right, so either he opens the garage door before the shot of them, or this too is an unconnected shot. Then we see Toy Bonnie brandishing a screwdriver, which kinda looks comically small in his hand. And what's funny is when I first saw this, I thought it was an ink pen. Yeah, I don't think that'd get you very far, Bonnie. We then cut to a couple shirking from something, hiding behind their couch, holding each other. Maybe it's from Toy Bonnie if he's, really tall. I can't get a reading on the shadow, so it might be him or it might be someone completely different. It might be Mangle crawling in through the ceiling. Then a bunch of hallway doors fling open to reveal what I'm pretty sure is Afton at the end. It could be a ghost of Afton, it could also be a hallucination or a nightmare sequence. Then we see Vanessa swinging out a gun, though we know this is not at Afton because now suddenly it's daylight. There's Balloon Boy in his normal FNAF 2 form and not the cartoonized Lucky Boy statue as shown in FNAF 1. And then William Afton in Spring Bonnie grabbing a knife, in what could be a flashback sequence or not. I can't remember if William Afton's hands got significantly scuffed up during FNAF 1, but if they did, that might be a good way to tell, but I'll explain later why I think this might be a flashback. We then cut to Mangle snatching someone I don't recognize. It's a woman with long brown hair. Then, a car getting its windshield broken in by what looks to be the end of one of Mangle's arms, though who's driving it is unclear. We get Mike holding Abby in what's almost a chokehold. Now, this lighting might work for the Mangle scene. And Vanessa is hiding behind them. We then hear a boisterous "Showtime!" Not like that. which is likely Toy Freddy, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and then a cut of Toy Freddy walking through the Faz-Fest. We also see a lady dressed up like Chica, and she even has a cupcake. Adorable. And that's the end for now. So what's the plot of FNAF 2? Well, we've seen some big clues so far. From what I'm taking from all this, the basic plot is likely this. The toy animatronics are hunting Mike, Abby, and Vanessa, or maybe just Abby and Mike and Vanessa are simply in the crossfire. This is possibly because Abby went to their location and stirred them awake, but is equally likely that they have been tampered with by Afton somehow, and he's the driving force behind the scenes, like he usually is, a la the Twisted Ones where he stayed in the background after springwalking and used his animatronics to hunt down Charlie. They might also be attacking anyone who comes into their path, as they did in the Twisted Ones too. Likely the film is going to focus more on Abby. The first film had plenty of Abby, her bonding with like Golden Freddy and the animatronics and stuff, but in this case she seems to have a little more agency of her own, and no Golden Freddy to guide her along, such as willingly leaving to see the animatronics and having a bike to bike herself around. Plus also being the likely prime target, such as if the school scene happens nowadays, then that could be that the toy animatronics are following wherever Abby goes, and that's what leads them to the school. I'm pretty sure that all the Faz-Fest stuff is likely in a flashback towards the beginning of the movie, and how it'll go is that we'll see the Faz-Fest, see a horrendous accident or event, likely orchestrated by Afton, and then cut to nowadays. That explains why the toy location is closed. There was this big, very public event that happened. But it is possible that not all of the toy attacks that we see in this trailer come from nowadays. Like, some of them might take place in the past. And like I said earlier, I also think that the scene of Afton and Spring Bonnie grabbing a knife is likely a flashback, because while I think Afton is involved, it's FNAF after all, I don't think he's going to be appearing much in this film. I'm thinking that with it being a trilogy and like the third entry is almost definitely going to be about Springtrap, likely we won't get a lot of current Afton. Save for flashbacks in the hallway scene, which could be a haunting. It could be that Vanessa is having hallucinations for some reason. That could set up some sort of Vanny situation in the third movie. But the point being, I think that we're seeing hints of Afton in this movie, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of Afton in this movie. Because it would be kind of weird to have them make Afton into Springtrap in the first movie, have them face Springtrap in the second movie, and then have them face Springtrap again in the third. Springtrap's that sort of thing that you kind of got to save him for the end. Anyway, as for Abby's friends, I think this note suggests one of two things. One, Abby goes to seek out the classic animatronics, possibly withered now, and they might come into the fold towards the end of the movie to fight off the toys, again a la Twisted Ones. Or Abby thinks the toys are her friends, maybe they befriend her, maybe she just assumes they're friendly, and they trick her in an attempt to target her. There was a possible script page in the One Reel 4 Fake Pages Scott released that showed Toy Chica with Abby while Vanessa is in the back room getting squeezed by something, possibly Mangle. She looks back at the cameras and Vanessa agrees to give her the code to protect Abby. She feeds it to her, Abby puts it in, and Toy Chica says, "We've been freed!" Now this scene still seems weird. Somehow Vanessa would be captured, but Abby would still not be aware that the toys are dangerous. Unless Toy Chica is using Abby's trust of animatronics, like with the classics who were originally aggressive, but had to basically be shown who the real bad guy was. And if that's the case, they might be using Abby's trust against her. And likely the "we're free" is some sort of code to let them leave the building. However, like I said, the scene feels off, so likely this isn't real. Unless, and I'm about to cover this, since there's not going to be a fourth movie involving sister location, the toy animatronics are taking some inspiration from the Funtime animatronics. Regardless, I think it nails one thing. I definitely think that unlike the original movie's classic animatronics, who were aggressive but misguided, from the feel of what we're seeing, I think the toys are going to be straight up villains. Maybe also misguided souls, but also maybe robots built by Afton to help him, or maybe just tampered with. Maybe that's why Toy Bonnie brandishes a screwdriver in a way resembling how Afton wields a knife. I might be totally off kilter here, but the way I see it, if the toys were turned good like the classics, it could come off as a little redundant. Plus, if the classics or wizards do appear, I would appreciate some sort of clash between them, especially since these ones are breaking down doors and stuff. These aren't the type of animatronics that can just be left to molder in a restaurant, especially if they've been let loose. Not shown in the teaser, but Abby does apparently get an item known as a FazTalker. It's a toy, sort of like a walkie-talkie Tamagotchi with Toy Freddy's face on it. I'm assuming she's going to be using this to either talk with the toy animatronics or perhaps even the puppet. It sort of depends on if she finds it and is lured by whatever's texting with her to come find the pizzeria, or if she finds it at the pizzeria. Or it is possibly given to her by the toys or found in like a lost or found somewhere. If this is the thing that initially lures Abby to the pizzeria, then it could be a sort of callback or reworking of the plotline with Cassie in Ruin when she's lured to the Mimic through a walkie-talkie. Or maybe just unconnected entirely. Moving on. Wayne Knight is gonna die. If you've seen Jurassic Park, you know that he's an expert at that. Jokes aside, I love Wayne Knight. He might be a background character, but I hope he's like this irate teacher at Abby's school who gets like one scene and then gets a U-2s. Vanessa's alive, and now seems to be a staple of the Schmidt household. Maybe. I don't think she's actually living with them. Something about her and Mike meeting outside somewhere to talk makes me think that they aren't. But she is in every scene Mike and Abby are in. Though, in hindsight, all of these clips could be from the same exact scene. Like I said earlier, movie will likely end with a Springtrap reveal, but I don't expect a real confrontation until movie 3, unlike the Twisted ones. And you might wonder why I'm bringing up the Twisted ones so much, and that's because the whole animatronics chasing someone around thing directly after Afton was spring-locked feels a lot like that book. Though, don't expect Abby to have a robot reveal, and Vanessa better not show up in a skin-tight red dress. She's coming in blue, or she isn't coming at all. Now onto what you're actually here for. The puppet. We know the puppet will be a huge part of the movie, not just because of the codename Music Box and the Music Box music over the back of the trailer, but because it didn't directly appear in the trailer. You can always tell a character's going to be big when they don't show up in the previews. Like 6 from 9, doesn't appear in many if any previews if I recall. Didn't even appear in the mobile game, ended up being a major character and hands down the most popular character in the fanbase. It's these striped characters, I tell ya. So, what's the puppet's deal? Well, assuming the toys are all crazy killers, maybe the puppet is the one who's truly haunted? Sticking to Fnaf's recent lore development of the missing 5. No, wait, actually, there's a 6th one. Likely the puppet is the Macguffin of the movie, whether it is actually the one controlling the toys for some reason to get Abby, though I think that would be too similar to Golden Freddy in the first one, or it's like the big bad that appears last, maybe just to swing in during the climax for whatever reason. I feel like it's the key to stopping the major threat the toys pose, elsewise it wouldn't be all over the movie. Now, a while back, a listing for an actress playing someone named Charlie popped up, and I can't recall if it was ever debunked, so assuming it's real, and assuming there are flashback scenes, it's possible Charlie could be introduced into the movie as the puppet through one of those. Maybe at Faz-Fest and during the inciting incident. Though in a way, I think it's odd that we're kind of bringing Charlie into the story if that is the case. And this isn't just me, the "it said save him" queen. I mean, like, reframing Fnaf for the movie. See, Mike was made to not be Afton's son, Vanessa was made to be Afton's daughter, she was brought back to the 1990s instead of existing in whatever decade security breach takes place in. William Afton didn't pick up the name Dave. So there's been some changes to the story to fit more into the movie's setting, because it's its own continuity. And I do think having the puppet be a character who we will only recognize by name alone might take out some of the emotional stakes that would have been had if it was, say, Garrett, Mike's younger brother, who disappeared, especially if we're looking at an audience who might have not played the games, because a reveal of Charlie is going to be most effective to people who are actively involved in the games and the books and stuff like that. That doesn't mean it would be a bad decision, but it does mean that it doesn't have the same oomph to it, I suppose you would say. Actually, notably, funny enough, Charlotte and Garrett both have names that sound like the Marionette. That might have been a coincidence, but I always assumed that Charlie's name was purposefully chosen to sound like Marionette, unless it was a happy accident. Point is, frankly, I'd be fine if the puppet was either of these characters, just as long as it shows up for more than a few minutes and I get to see it wiggle around. That's not what makes me nervous about the puppet possibly being Charlie, though. What makes me nervous is the possible introduction of Henry, likely in the third movie. People think I hate Henry. I do not hate Henry. In fact, I actually like Henry because he's such a complex character to dissect. And I think that's where the confusion comes in. Me dissecting a character and saying things like, he really let Charlie down, and so on, that's not me disliking the character. As a matter of fact, that's me enjoying the character, because the character's fleshed out enough that I can actually make those assumptions about them. That being said, there is a big concern when it comes to bringing Henry into the movies. Henry is, and always has been, a huge attention sponge. In the games, he basically overtook everyone else's ending, even denying the main character, Michael, any agency. And in the books, Charlie's big moment of finding herself and going up against her doppelganger is basically stolen by the whole Henry's woe and pain backstory, all framed around him. Let me tell you, if we have 2 movies of Mike, Abby, and Vanessa taking on Afton with their animatronic friends, and then suddenly Henry comes in to save the day at the last second, it's not going to feel like a triumphant callback. It'll feel like Mike's sitting there with his thumb up his... You get the picture. We don't want another Michael Shafton incident, especially if Circus Baby's there or Vanessa's brainwashed into being Vanny, then it'll feel real cluttered. Of course, there's always the possibility that William is actively running around in the movie, Charlie isn't the puppet, and Vanessa has a twin sister in cahoots with dear old dad. But we'll just have to see. I think it's too early to predict if the movie's going to be good or not. That's something we won't be able to get a read on until, we actually see it. But it certainly looks like there's going to be a significantly bigger threat now that the animatronics aren't largely confined to the Pizzaplex. And that will no doubt make the movie much more tense. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes. That's it. Not really much else to say. Okay, actually, one thing to say. I think that not adhering to FNAF 2's original premise of being a prequel to FNAF 1 was absolutely for the best. Or at least, the movie taking place mostly in the current time was a good choice. There was also a brief theory that Mike's fellow security guard, Jeremiah, the one from the beginning of the movie, the Jeremy stand-in, would be the main security guard of the new location, and perhaps the main character, because, Jeremy, remember Jeremy, FNAF 2. But that doesn't look to be the case, because he didn't even so much as show up in the teaser. There's always an inherent risk when you choose to make a sequel and focus on different characters than the main cast of the first movie. It's not always a recipe for disaster, but we've certainly seen disasters come out of it. And the same goes for if the whole movie took place in the past. It's easier to move forward than backwards. I think the only exception to the rule would be that one Final Destination movie, which I won't name since it's a big spoiler. So, I was admittedly pretty concerned about how the second movie would handle the prequel aspect, because I foresaw if they tried to suddenly rip away from Mike, Abby, and Vanessa and went back into the past for the entire movie, I didn't see that feeling very natural. But it looks like they're just kind of briefly looking back into the past before moving forward with the current story, and I feel assured I think that was a way better choice. Okay, so I guess that's really all I have to say here. FNAF 2's coming out in December, and we'll see how it turns out. Anyway, thank you for watching.